Precisa ferir a pressão, medir a glicemia ou tomar uma vacina? Na Drogasil tem exames, testes e calendário vacinal completo. E o que é melhor, tem sempre uma Drogasil aí perto de você. É fácil, prático e rápido. Dá para ir entre uma música e outra. Procure nossos farmacêuticos. Quanto mais você conhece o que a gente faz na Drogasil, mais você se cuida.
All-star closer Kenley Jansen, we have a question.
What's the best podcast of all time? Baseball isn't boring, baby.
I'm Rob Bradford, and every single day I'm sitting down with the biggest names to show you this great game is the greatest game. It's my podcast. It's my passion. It's a cause I started more than 2 years ago and is now the most prolific national daily baseball pod there is. Another fact, so jump aboard the BIB Express. Follow and listen to Baseball Isn't Boring, presented by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian Renick. He's Al Sacco. The 49ers just announced today, Sunday, August 11th at about 4:30 p.m. that the joint practices with the New Orleans Saints down in UC Irvine are officially canceled this week because the 49ers don't have enough players to really be comfortable scrimmaging against another team. So they lost their preseason opener. They're aggressively injured. Brandon Aiyuk still hasn't signed an extension. Trent Williams still isn't in camp. Vibes are not feeling great. Al, how are you feeling about just the overall vibes of the 49ers and that first preseason game that we witnessed yesterday on Saturday?
Well, one thing I do feel good about is if you're watching on YouTube, you see my shirt. It's the Hall of Fame collection. Brian, it is on last show. A Hall of Fame collection from Homage. Homage. Check it out in the description. You can get your own tons of cool Niner stuff. Check it out. My vibes, Brian, I don't know, man. It feels like another dysfunctional kind of camp preseason, and I wish that would stop. At the end of the day, if they end up in the Super Bowl again, who gives a shit? You're going to again say, oh, well, remember all the drama with Nick Bosa? Not really, because they made it to the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. But it was, I don't know. Everything feels kind of weird right now. They canceled the joint practices with the Saints because of injuries. Yeah, I thought the preseason game felt a little weird to me too. Just a lot of new faces. It was just kind of like, not a big preseason guy unless it's, you're watching a JJ McCarthy or a Bo Nix or Caleb Williams, somebody like that. You're like, oh, I want to check this guy out. For a team like the Niners, so many proven vets. There aren't a ton of guys I was really interested in seeing. I didn't give a shit about Dobbs or Brandon Allen. If Purdy gets hurt, we're screwed anyway. You know what I mean? So It's kind of like whatever. We know what they both are. But there were 4 guys that stood out to me. And I know I had 4, and I think you had somebody different. But I did want to highlight them because the rest of the game, whatever. It's a preseason game. 4 guys stood out to me. And I'll tell you why they stood out to me and why I think it's important they stood out to me. The first one was Jordan Mason, who is a fan favorite, who the fans have been clamoring for a couple of years now for him to get on the field a little bit more, but it seemed like there was always something holding him back. And Bobby Turner talked about this offseason, maybe he had to grow up a little bit. It seemed like, he, for whatever reason, Shanahan didn't want to put him in. Well, I thought he played really well overall in the game. He ran really hard. And why that's important is the Niners need a reliable running back too. I understand Elijah Mitchell is reliable, but Elijah Mitchell is never healthy. So he's reliable. He's on the field, but he's not
reliable. He's good, but he's not reliable.
He's not there. Yeah. Like, he's not available. So Jordan Mason, if he can step up and be that RB2, I really feel like he can get a stranglehold on that. Guarendo's out. Cody Schrader, didn't look too great to me either. He's somebody that we were excited about, and maybe he will get better. But Jordan Mason coming in and running like that, running hard, I have faith in him if there are games without McCaffrey that they can get in there. And you're always going to miss McCaffrey, but he can at least pick up the slack and still be very good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a JP Mason podcast. We've talked about we've talked about him. He goes by Jordan Mason, JP Mason. Pontez is his middle name, which I think I've never heard that middle name before. I love it. But this is a pro Mason pod. And we've talked about pro Mason in that we love the way that he runs the ball. The downside of Mason was he wasn't able to really prove himself in the passing game. And that meant both as a pass catcher and as a blocker, right? With blitz pickup and just protection of the quarterback, things like that. What I love about Mason is the fact that he spent $3,000 this offseason and bought himself a jugs machine and spent all summer with his dad catching thousands of balls from the jugs machine. Like I just love it because to me that shows a want, right? A desire. Like, listen, I'm not content to just be on this team. I want to be better and I want to be a meaningful part of it. And I've been told, here's why I'm not seeing the field. So I'm going to work this offseason to address those things. I love it. I love stories like that. So again, love what Mason did there. And not only that, but no, I don't know how, but there have been positive reports on him when it comes to blitz pickup and things like that, which means that it seems like he's getting better in that area as well. So kudos to JP Mason. I've always thought that he belonged on this team. I would love, like you said, to see him get a stranglehold on that RB2 position, because I think that he could be an impact player for this team, even though they have Christian McCaffrey, who rarely comes off the field.
Yeah, and at some point, listen, McCaffrey's going to get hurt. He's human. He's a running back.
Sure.
There's going to be times where he's going to miss a game, and you hope it's just one game that he's not up for an extended period, and they need somebody who can come in and step up for them. So it was a good sign. The second guy on offense that stood out to me, and I'm sure everybody is going to know the name that's coming up, that's Dominic. Yep. And thought he played a really strong game, and specifically with pass protection. He had 14 dropbacks. He didn't allow a pressure. He was perfect. Now, in the run game, his PFF grade actually pretty poor, which is interesting because I thought I'd have to go back and watch it, but I didn't think he played poorly in the run game. But maybe, again, going back watching the film, I don't know. Not that PFF is the end-all, be-all, but it was interesting that he got a low grade there. But again,
he's part of the reason why Mason got that touchdown. Mason even said,
yeah, for sure. And he's a rookie. This is his first game. It's somebody who you don't expect to go in there and, look like prime Alan Faneca or something like that. There's going to be ups and downs. But what I saw, I really liked, and I liked enough out of him to think that, maybe he really does have a chance to start here. And with Burford being hurt and Feliciano being banged up, he really has the inside track for week one. He could end up being the starting guard.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also, shout out to you for an Alan Faneca reference on this podcast. That was fantastic. Wasn't ready for that.
It in there sometimes. You never know with me what reference I'm going to throw out.
I loved it. It certainly seems like with the positive reports coming out of camp, the injuries at right guard that are giving him that opportunity, it feels like he's going to, by the end of preseason going into week one, we're going to say, look, it was really the Titans preseason game that really solidified him as the starter there. And then he just didn't relinquish that position. And I think ideally that is what we wanted, right? To start the season. We wanted to see Pooney in there. You want to see the next, the next, I don't want to say next man up, but I just hope it's not necessarily he's at right guard this year and then moves to left guard because they don't re-sign Aaron Banks, and then right guard is another black hole. Like, we got to get right guard figured out. And if Dominic Pooney can play there this season and solidify himself there, I would love to see him be the right guard moving forward. Pass protection, that was always going to be the part of his game that was ahead of the run blocking, especially since he spent most of his time in college at tackle prior to being a guard. And that was his calling card as well. He didn't allow a sack. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe he allowed a sack in any season that he played in. He did not. In college. So, I mean, I don't care where you're playing. That's impressive as hell. And the fact that, he ended his career at Kansas, in a Power 5 conference, like, kudos to Pooney. But yeah, pass protection was always going to be kind of his calling card. It's very similar to Jalen Moore, right? Jalen Moore, Chris Forster talked about how Jalen Moore is an excellent pass protector. It's the run game where he really struggles. I think it's going to be the same with Pooney. But I also, I feel like it sounds like Pooney takes coaching well, that he's kind of a film junkie, that he just wants to get in there and be the best that he can. So I don't anticipate it continuing to be a problem, and will likely get better as the season progresses. And
it's important because the offensive line has to get better. They need better players on the offensive line. So if Pooney is somebody who's going to be able to start week 1 and somebody who's going to get better and better and better, that's huge for the Niners. Third player out of my 4, and I think everybody's got to pump the brakes a little bit on this guy, is D. Winters. He did stand out to me because he looked fast. He was flying around the field, and I think the upside is there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But let's pump the brakes on the week 1 starter over Campbell and replacing Greenlaw right now. He looked fast. Yeah. He looked like everything is there, but there were plays that he overran. There were some plays that he missed. And it was interesting. Again, his PFF grades were terrible, absolutely terrible. They were the lowest on the team. And again, I didn't see that when I was watching it, but he was a 30.2 in the run game and a 39.4 in the pass game. So they rated him out terribly, which is a little bit concerning there. But again, young player, fast, upside. I was encouraged by it. I'm not, going crazy and saying that he's going to be, he's got to be a week 1 starter and this, that, and the other thing. No, I think you bring him along this year with the hopes that maybe next year, because it's important, depending on what happens with Dre Greenlaw.
Correct.
If he's healthy, he's going to get a big contract next year. And I don't think the Niners can afford that. So they're going to have to try to find someone to replace him if indeed he is going to go out in the open market and get 10 plus, however many million he's going to get when he gets out there, 15 million a year, whatever he's going to get if he's Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, D. Winters, when we drafted him, I was like, well, that's Dre Greenlaw. Like, they drafted Dre Greenlaw around the same. I believe they drafted Dre Greenlaw in the 5th round. They got Winters in the 6th round, but very similar profiles, very similar athletic profiles, fast sideline to sideline, plays with his hair on fire, vicious, right? And Dre Greenlaw in his first couple of seasons had the very same issues that D. Winters is having, over pursuing plays, kind of getting caught up in the mental aspect. And so I think physically speaking, he's ready. It's just that mental part. And Kyle Shanahan said early in this offseason that D. Winters was ready to contribute last season. He just didn't get the opportunity. I just hope that, I don't think D. Winters is there I don't think D. Winters should start week 1. I'm not, I am not on that train.
No.
But when it comes to like filling out your 53 and trying to figure out like, who do we keep and who do we not? And you've got Fred Warner and you've got Devondre Campbell. And I imagine that, Dre Greenlaw is going to start on the pup. Right. And so, your question becomes, who are you keeping? You've got a plethora of guys to choose from. D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Curtis Robinson. Like, there's a lot of names there. My hope is that, D. Winters is in there and you say, all right, well, we're going to have you on the 53. You're going to be a key piece of our, special teams. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to continue to put you in and practice with the 2s and maybe sometimes the 1s and try and bring you along so that if something happens, Devondre Campbell is not young. Dre Greenlaw is recovering from a torn Achilles. We have no idea what that's going to look like. At a certain point, you may need a guy like D. Winters. And if he's, if you've kind of tabbed him and had him doing those things, then he should be at a point where he is ready to contribute. And again, he's a 2nd-year player. If he ends up on the field, he's going to make mistakes. That's just the nature of it. Right. But very tantalizing physical attributes and, looks like I said, looks the part out there, looks a little bit like Dre Greenlaw out there, just needs to get a handle on the mental aspect of the game.
And my 4th player was Mustafa, who looked shot out of a cannon on that goal line stop. He's an exciting player.
Yes.
He's a guy similar to Hufanga, who I think the way that they handled Hufanga, I should say, we're in an ideal world, he's kind of red shirts this year and then would take over as the starter next season because Hufanga, Greenlaw, Ward, Lenore. You got those 4 guys who need contracts. Mm-hmm. I think 2 of the 4 are going to get contracts. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world for the 49ers, Winters or whoever can find one of these linebackers to step up and replace Greenlaw. Mustafa replaces Hufanga, and then you re-sign the 2 corners. So that was important to me. Again, it's a long season. It was his first preseason game, but he just flashed the speed. He flashed that maybe he can be a big play guy, a hard hitter. He was an exciting player. So those were the 4 guys to me, Brian, that I really, really liked. All good signs. Again, with winners, I was seeing things last night where, well, guys got to start pump the brakes, and the same thing with Mustafa. Pump the brakes a little bit. There's going to be growing pains. Let's see how they do in a real game. But encouraging. They looked fast. They look like maybe eventually they can be guys that can make an impact on this team.
Agreed. We have Steve-O with a comment. Mustafa shall now be named Mustafa. I like it. I also came up with Mustafia. Mustafia was the one that I came up with because he absolutely destroyed that running back for Tennessee. That was an incredible play. I loved that. That was my favorite play of the game. Because again, it wasn't a game that was very exciting or full of offense or anything like that. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought one guy that I thought also looked good running the ball was Cody Schrader. I've talked about Cody Schrader before. Well, I said that before we came on, that when I guessed your 4 players, one of them that I guessed was Cody Schrader. But I thought that he looked again running behind what he's running behind. I thought he had good vision. I thought that, he displayed what made him good at Missouri and what makes him a good fit for this run scheme, which is one cut and go, very north and south, great vision. He got stuffed a couple times, but again, he's running behind guys that aren't going to be on this team come, the cut down or whatever. So again, I don't think he was he didn't blow the doors off, but I do think that he displayed some of the things that I think the 49ers are excited about with him. And so just wanted to shout him out as well. Not a whole lot you can take from this game other than trying to highlight some players that made plays.
Hey, fantasy football owners, the road to winning your fantasy football championship starts now. I'm Matt Harmon from Reception Perception. Join me and James Coe as we take a deep dive into the position that's going to make or break your fantasy roster. Wide receivers. We analyze route running, target share, and all the metrics that matter, giving you the insights you need to draft the best wide receivers. As you prep for your draft, let us give you the coverage you need. Follow and listen to Reception Perception on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
We talked about the vibes with the team. I'm tired of talking about Brandon Aiyuk. I think the fans are tired of it. I think everybody's just kind of sick of this whole drama.
Yeah.
But Friday happens, and we get a report on Friday after a week of being on pins and needles. When is this trade going to happen? It looks like he's going to Pittsburgh. Pretty Ricky saying he's going to Pittsburgh. Andrew Filippone saying he's going to Pittsburgh. There's all these things that are happening going to Pittsburgh. And then a report comes out on Friday. It was Jordan Schultz and Tom Pelissero that I saw put out the report saying, well, the Niners have reopened negotiations with Brandon Aiyuk. Okay. The Niners, here we go. He's about to come back. Just a matter of time. And everybody's, okay, let's do this. We knew it was going to happen. We knew cooler heads would prevail. Articles start to come out saying, oh, well, they were coming to this point all along, and it looks like they've reopened contract negotiations. 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, wasn't that far after these reports came out. Brandon Aiyuk responds on Instagram. The Instagram, it's the SF Niners, right? Is that Brad?
Brad Graham. I love Brad.
Okay, so when he responds to Brad, who I think Brad's had Brandon on the show before, so they may have some kind of relationship there. But he says, Brad, Niners be in the media every day, LLL. It's 2 options out there. Pick one and stop dropping reports. Simple. And I'm like, holy shit, when I heard that. So what's happening here is the Niners are leaking, and they're doing it on purpose, but they're leaking to the media. And in this situation, they're leaking that, hey, we've reopened negotiations. So for whatever reason, they're doing that to put pressure on Aiyuk, to put pressure on the Steelers, whatever, but they're putting it out there. Aiyuk sees that and immediately responds. Nope. 2 options are still there. Pay me what I'm asking for or trade me to the Steelers. That's where we stand. And there's been no news since then, at least that I've seen or heard. It's 48 hours ago now. We're recording this on a Sunday night at all in this. So once again, it looks like we're at a stalemate. It looks like we're in a staring contest. I am sick of this shit. And I have to wonder again, listen, Ayuk's been on social media. Ayuk's done some pretty stupid shit with the Commanders tape and everything else, right? He's done some stuff that you're like, dude, that's kind of cringy. Like, what are we doing? I know you're trying to get your money, but But the Niners also, with these leaks, how do you think the trades for Cleveland came out, both Amari Cooper and the draft picks they were going to put in there, and what Patriots were offering? Because the Niners put that stuff out there. Right. That's why it's happening. So now all this stuff is happening in the media, and I just wonder, we've talked about it before, and you've been hard on them for it. The way that they do these contract negotiations with their stars, they've gotten people, they've signed the deals eventually. But it hurt Nick Bosa last year to the point where even Bosa said, I wasn't in shape early in the season. So it got in too late. Debo came in out of shape. We're just seeing these things happen, and they drag on and they drag on and they drag on, and eventually it's going to bite them in the ass. I feel like we're close to that right now. We'll talk about the Trent Williams situation in a little bit, but let's stick with the Aiyuk one for right now.
Yeah. This
doesn't look like it's going to get settled unless the Niners come up with their offer or they trade him. Now, I think the Niners want to do either thing.
Yeah.
Well, so here we have, again, drama, another situation where even, we talked about the bad vibes, and Mike Silver wrote an article about it too. Like, it's just weird right now. Everything's just kind of like, and they do it to themselves, man. Should have just figured this shit out months ago. We need Brandon Aiyuk. It's March. Here's your $25 million a year offer. Okay. That's probably where we would have been at, or 26, whatever they're offering. Here you go. And you probably have it locked down, but now it's just continues to go on and on and on and on. You're either going to have to overpay what you wanted to pay him now, or you got to trade him. He's probably not going to play on the 5th year option. And if he does, it's going to be a distraction. Yeah. So look, what are we doing?
Well, and I am team get yo money, right? Like I have no problem with Brandon Aiyuk understanding his market and wanting to get paid accordingly. And I will never begrudge a player trying to get paid. I just never will. But there's also just some realities out there that I think a lot of people don't think about. And, even you got to talk to Andrew Filipponi from out in Pittsburgh. And one of the things he said was that the Steelers kind of have the 49ers over a barrel. And I kind of disagree with that, because the reality of the situation is this: as much as people may think that Brandon Aiyuk has leverage, he really doesn't. The reason he doesn't have leverage is because 4 years ago, he signed his name to a piece of paper that said, we're going to pay you this much money. And after 4 years, if we exercise a 5th year, you will play on that 5th year for this amount of money. He signed that contract.
I don't agree with that.
But he signed it.
Right? He did. But he's displaying his leverage every day right now. Every day.
Is it actual leverage, or is it perceived leverage? Because like you said, I mean, something came out today, 49ers and NFL News 24/7. No idea who runs that account. A lot of followers, 32,000 followers. Again, I don't know who it is. I don't know that they have sources, whatever. It says Brandon Aiyuk wants San Francisco to match the contract the Steelers are willing to pay him. Don't know what that is. Rumors are it's about $28 million a year. Or just trade him to Pittsburgh. Aiyuk informed the 49ers he will absolutely not play on the 5th year option. That's okay. You can say that. But here's the other reality. If you don't play, if you sit out the whole season, you do not accrue your 5th season. Who retains your contract rights after that? The 49ers do. The 49ers also have a franchise tag that they can use on you next year as well. So as much leverage as it feels like the player has, and that leverage is largely, I'll make myself a distraction, I'll make myself a problem, whatever. It already is a distraction. It already is a problem. But when push comes to shove, there are so many guardrails in place for the 49ers not to have to trade Brandon Aiyuk for pennies on the dollar, because that's ultimately what Pittsburgh is trying to get them to do, is trade Brandon Aiyuk for pennies on the dollar.
And if he gets traded, it will likely be pennies on the dollar.
Right.
They're not going to get back equal value for him.
They're not. They're not. They're not. And so to me, again, what I don't understand is what Brandon Aiyuk wants, because it's like he wants to get paid, but the Patriots were going to pay him way more than anybody else was, and he said no to them. And then he also said no to the Browns, which was going to be a much better return for the 49ers than whatever the Steelers are trying to offer. And he said no to the Browns as well. So it really feels like what Brandon Aiyuk is trying to do is act like a free agent, when in reality he's not. right? He's not a free agent. You don't get to choose where you're going to go. You're under contract with the 49ers. So,
but he is. That's the thing that like my argument with it. So he is because, all right. So like you said, they have the trade with the, which really would have been a really good trade if it was Amari Cooper in a second.
I would have been I would rather have Brandon Aiyuk, but I would have been more than okay with that trade
for this season. Yeah, it's like, okay, you got Amari Cooper, like we're okay.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm not doing it.
I'm not going. I'm not signing with Cleveland.
They have a trade with New England, which is likely a high second round pick. You would assume New England's not going to be very good this year.
Right. He
says no. He's exercising his leverage. He's saying, I want to go here. And I agree with you. It's bullshit in the grand scheme of things. What the Niners should say to him is, bro, you're on a 5th-year option, and we can tag you after that, or we can tag you and trade you next year. But like, you're playing for us this year. Like, they can just say that to him. And if he says, well, I'm not going to play, be like, all right, then yeah, exactly what you said. You're not going to accrue 5th year or whatever. Go ahead, man. Good, but you're going to play for us this year. But they're not doing that because they don't want that distraction, apparently. So the Niners have not only they've tried. So these 2 trades get nixed, right? And then they have this trade with Pittsburgh, and now they're going to other teams trying to find a third team to get a receiver back. So he is exercising this leverage. He is pushing them into a spot they don't want to be in. We'll see how it ultimately ends up. Like, it may end up like if he resigns or he just plays on the 5th year, then you say, all right, the Niners kind of won out here. But if they do trade him for what looks like it's going to be pennies on the dollar, yeah, he kind of did have the Niners over a barrel with this. Like, I can't even believe we're here. I'm just like, it's like you see this coming and you're like, they're going to figure it out. But in the back of your head, you're like, no, we're going to be in a shit show in August, and we're in a shit show in August again.
Well, and here's the question I have. Like, what is the holdup, right? Is it really 2 years average annual value over the life of the contract? Is that really what we're still quibbling over, right? Are you offering Brandon Aiyuk $26 million and Pittsburgh's offering him 28? And you're like, well, no, we're not going to go to 28, because that just seems absolutely asinine to me.
$2 million a year. Yeah.
Right. I think what we're not hearing is what these teams are offering in guaranteed money versus what the 49ers are offering in guaranteed money. That's, to me, where the rubber meets the road in any contract. How much actual cash are you giving me at signing? And so is this an issue with ownership saying, like, we don't have or we don't want to give that kind of cash up at signing for Brandon Aiyuk? Or is it something else? I don't know. We have no idea. But it sure seems to me like it is an absolutely ridiculous situation to be in if you're talking $2 million average annual value over the course of the contract. Like, that, to me, if that is the holdup, that's a joke. That's just a massive joke to me. And so we really don't know what it is, but it really does seem like, well, and that's the other thing is people have pointed out Brandon Aiyuk wants to play for the 49ers. He moved his family out here, right? Like, he wants to play for the 49ers, but he also understands his market. And there's a part where I think the 49ers valued him at a certain number and didn't believe that anybody else would value him higher than that. And then Brandon Aiyuk's like, well, yeah, they would. And they're like, well, fine, then go find somebody. And he found 3 different franchises that were willing to pay him what he wanted, and now come back to the 49ers. The 49ers like, shit, like, okay, well, we don't want to pay him that much. We don't value him that high, but the market does. And now he knows that. And now that's his bargaining chip. And so, like, it just feels like just a massive shit show from the beginning. And it just feels like this is not a franchise that should be having this kind of drama when it comes to contract negotiations. This is one of the diamonds in the NFL, right? Like, the 49ers are one of the franchises that the NFL is like, there's like 5 of them, right? That the NFL is like, these are our franchises. And it's the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Packers. You could say the New York teams just because New York is a massive market, right? And the Chiefs right now, right? Like, those are the darlings of the NFL. How are you allowing yourselves to look this ridiculous in the media? Because that's really what it looks
like. Friday they had egg on their face. They absolutely had egg on their face.
Absolutely.
It was clear. It was clear they leaked the story, and Aiyuk came right out and said, "Right, bullshit. Pay me or trade me." Like,
don't talk about it, be about it, right?
Yep.
You say that we're re-engaging, then just give me what I'm asking for. Like, what?
I thought the Niners, the thing happened with McCaffrey. He didn't show up to the OTA or whatever it was, and they just took care of it. All right, here's your pay bump, guaranteed next year. Good, it's over. Get your ass back here. Let's go. I said, all right, maybe they learned their lesson a little bit with some of this stuff. They're not going to let stuff linger. But now that we have everything with this Aiyuk thing and the Trent Williams thing too, I'm not worried about Trent because if 2 weeks from now I'll be worried. Right now I'm not worried.
Sure.
Trent Williams doesn't like camp. Like maybe he's just going to be like, all right, we'll figure this out in a couple of weeks type thing. Who knows what's going on? But Kyle was asked about it. He was asked how he feels more hopeful about the Trent Williams situation. And he said, no. I am hopeful about it, and I feel good about that. I feel optimistic about it, but nothing has changed there. Whatever the hell that means. So here's the thing I am with Trent Williams, too. Again, I'm assuming he's going to be back in 2 weeks. Until that doesn't happen, I'm going to assume that. But again, it's not like this came out of left field. At least I don't think so. You didn't know he was going to want more money? Did he just were you just hanging out with him one day and then he just didn't show up the next day?
You didn't.
Did you not see this coming?
You guys forgot that the rest of his contract wasn't guaranteed. Like, did you forget
that?
Like,
what? Did you not see this coming? Are you not having organizational discussions where you say, all right, well, Trent's like the 6th highest paid tackle right now. Do we want to go to him and say, listen, man, we love you?
My question is, does that really matter to Trent anymore? Or is it more about I'm 36, I want guaranteed money because at any point my career could be over in one play? I think it's that. I don't know that they have to make him the highest paid tackle, but I think what they have to do is guarantee more of his money. And for whatever reason, they haven't done that yet. And to me, that again doesn't make any sense.
Again, you're assuming he's going to be there next year. I don't think they went into the season thinking this is the last year of Trent. I think they were hoping we have another couple of years with him. Just guarantee these 2 years. Give him a pay bump this year and guarantee next year. I don't understand what the holdup is there. Yeah. And I don't understand why, again, this was this a surprise? How did you not see this coming? How did you not address this? Let's go to him and make sure this doesn't happen. So it's really frustrating there with them. And I hope in 2 weeks it's all moot point that we can get back to what's on the field. But right now, some people are saying in the chat, like, they want to talk about football.
Yeah.
This is right now. These are the stories. I'm sorry.
And here's where I think the Brandon Aiyuk situation does also rear its head for current football, right? We talked about him earlier, the SF Niners. Brad Graham is the one who runs that account both on Twitter and Instagram. Shout out to Brad. Super proud of him. He got credentialed to cover training camp this year. So I'm thrilled for him. That's fantastic. A guy that worked himself up from nothing and, built a reputation within the halls of 4949 and now is on the field credentialed covering training camp. One of the things that he tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he was thinking about this Brandon Aiyuk situation. And one of the things that he noticed at camp was, if you think back to the offense in 2019, right, to start the season, prior to trading for Emmanuel Sanders, the offense felt like it had kind of hit a ceiling, and it hit a ceiling because it didn't have an X receiver that they could rely upon, right? Like they had Debo, who was a rookie, but Debo's not an X receiver in Kyle Shanahan's offense, right? Kyle Shanahan's offense, when it is humming and running on all cylinders, it has always had a dominant X receiver. In Houston, that was Andre Johnson. In Atlanta, that was Julio Jones. And in San Francisco, that has been Brandon Aiyuk since they drafted Brandon Aiyuk in 2020. But really 2021 was the first year where he kind of took off, right? The X receiver is the guy that you don't have to scheme open, right? He's the guy that you send outside and you're like, hey, get open. And it's the guy that can get open even if you're facing press man coverage. It's the guy that, it is the top dog in your offense. Debo Samuel is not that. And the offense in 2019 really felt like it kind of hit a ceiling. And then they traded for Emmanuel Sanders, who is not a traditional X. I'm not saying that he is. But once they traded for an adult in the room when it came to a wide receiver, right, the offense took off. And they made it to the Super Bowl. Brad said during his time covering this training camp, without Brandon Aiyuk on the field, this offense has looked a lot more like that 2019 pre-Emmanuel Sanders offense than it's looked like any offense we've seen since then. That is a problem. That's a huge problem. Now, Ricky Pearsall, injured, but also a rookie, right? Juwan Jennings cannot fill that X role. That is not Juwan Jennings, right?
No, not his game.
There is no one on this roster that can fill that X role except for Brandon Aiyuk. And if that X receiver is the straw that stirs the drink when it comes to this offense and its explosiveness, why are you fucking around so much with Brandon Aiyuk? Get it done. Get him in. This team has to be offense led. And if it's not going to be, it's going to be a long season, and they are not going to be the Super Bowl contenders that we think that they are.
Yeah, Chris Conley is going to be the starter. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. Like, you know, it's just unbelievable to me. And you can see that, well, maybe it is how I want to say how desperate they are, because they are looking for another wide receiver to come in, because they know they can't make this trade with Pittsburgh and have a couple, get a second round pick and a fourth round pick or whatever, and then have no NFL caliber wide receiver coming back, and not Kelvin Austin or whoever the hell Pittsburgh wanted to trade. Give me a break. You know, they were looking at Amari Cooper. They were looking at Darius Slayton from the Giants, who's, again, he's not going to play Aiyuk, but he's a little bit better than you think. Cortland Sutton was a name that I heard can come back over. I think he has 2 years left on his deal, and the Broncos are very much rebuilding. But again,
are you really going to get one of those guys without also giving up some of your own draft capital? Like,
well, you probably trading one of those second round picks or whatever. Yeah.
Now you're trading your best wide receiver, and then you're also trading resources to get another wide receiver to replace him because you just refuse to pay him. Like, that just is not, that's not good. That's not good business. That's not good process.
Yeah. And I understand they have to pay Purdy. They have to pay Purdy. But again, you're going to make choices.
Ways to do that. There are so many ways to do that. The Eagles are paying Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley, and you can do it.
Yeah, in 3 years. So okay, if you know this year and next year, Ayuk's hits are small, because in 3 years, Kittle's not going to. If Kittle even is still on the team, he'll be 34 years old. He's not going to be making the money he's making. Debo may not be there. Christian McCaffrey might not be there. Trent Williams might not be there. You need Aiyuk for that next window.
Yeah, he's 26.
26. You're gonna sign him up to the next window, and he's going to be your number one receiver for the next 4 or 5 years with Purdy. Without him, you better pray you hit on Ricky Pearsall. You better pray.
Who's 24, by the way. It's only 2 years younger than Brandon Aiyuk.
It's just the more you look at it, and if you listen to the show, I've been playing devil's advocate a lot with it. But when you really look at it now, as the season's getting closer and football wise, it is stupid. It makes no sense. It's an organizational failure if you go into the season without him and you trade him for pennies on the dollar and end up with whoever, and either a rookie or Chris Conley replacing him. You know, the Niners receivers look good when it was Aiyuk, Debo, Jennings, and you could kind of ease Cowing and Pearsall in, and then you have your Conleys or whoever to kind of, balance it out. Without Aiyuk, all of a sudden your receivers don't look that good. All of a sudden you may be relying on rookies more than you want to, or a vet like Conley, who's kind of, again, it doesn't excite anybody. He's fine. He's a fine role player, but he's not going to excite anybody as your starting receiver at this point in his career. So it's bizarre and it's maddening, and I'm frustrated. Friday I was pissed. Like Friday night I was pissed when I saw that report come out, and then at first I was happy because I was like, oh shit, maybe they're going to get something done. And then when Aiyuk answered back right after it, I was pissed. I was like, this is a circus. This is a circus. What are we doing? What are we doing? And the fact that after it's happened, it's just been nothing. I mean, not that I want these rumors because it's maddening, but like it's just been nothing. So clearly they're not deep in discussions. Clearly not much has changed from their trade talks. They're just in a stare down. So it's almost like, I don't know, almost like we've gone backwards within 5 minutes on Friday night. Like, you went backwards.
Yeah, I just don't think anything has changed since all these reports leaked, at the middle and end of last week, right? We're at the same place. The Steelers are willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk, but they're not willing to send the 49ers anything of value. And the 49ers at this point aren't willing to give Brandon Aiyuk what the Steelers are, but they aren't willing to get rid of him for pennies on the dollar as it currently stands. And so it's a pissing contest between Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers and the Steelers for that matter. And it's really just who blinks first. And
yeah,
I don't know. To me, typically the players are the ones that blink first. But at the same time, the 49ers blinked first when it came to Nick Bosa, which is why he got the contract that he wanted all along. They just allowed it to prolong to the point where they still paid him what he wanted. And they didn't win anything in the negotiations or anything like that. So again, what is this process? What is this process that you guys have put in place? Because it doesn't serve you, because in the end, you are paying these players at the top of the market. Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner. You're paying them at the top of the market, but with Bosa and Kittle and Deebo, you waited so long that it affected their entire season the next season, and you're still searching for that Super Bowl. So now you're doing it to your best wide receiver, the one that really probably elevates this offense more than Deebo Samuel does, in a season that kind of feels like the last ride, and you're just kind of dicking around over probably what it sounds like, maybe a couple million a season, or, I don't know, 10 to 15 million in guaranteed money. Now, again, $10 to $15 million, a lot of money. Not saying that. Do the Yorks have it? 100% they do. The 49ers are one of the most valuable franchises in the NFL. Let's not pretend that, we're talking about, the Jacksonville Jaguars or whatever, right? These NFL franchises have the money. They do. Right. So
yeah,
just get it done, guys. Just get it done.
Become personal. It's just a strange hill to die on for me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
sure.
It is just a personal thing. I said he hasn't handled it the best way. Maybe the Niners are pissed. Maybe that's just where everybody is right now.
But is there really a difference? Is there really a difference between the way that Brandon Aiyuk handled it and the way that Deebo Samuel handled it? Or
yeah, Deebo was kind of similar in the offseason.
Yes, but not Deebo.
Yeah, Bosa just kept his mouth shut and just said, I'm just not going to be here.
Right.
Bosa did not leak anything.
And that doesn't surprise me. That's Nick Bosa. That's Nick Bosa. But
I think Deebo did some things for sure. And I think maybe Aiyuk wanted to use that playbook, the Deebo playbook, but he just did some things that were bizarre and off the wall. Like they're watching the Commanders film. It's kind of like, dude, really? I'm sure the Niners didn't love that. There's been a lot of stuff like that.
The other thing that's weird that I don't think gets talked about a lot, but Brandon Aiyuk's agent and John Lynch have a personal relationship. They're close friends. Like how is this not getting done? How's this not gotten done? It just doesn't make any sense.
It's just bizarre. There's got to be more going on that we don't know about. It's just the situation is just totally bizarre. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, man, I can't be on Aiyuk watch anymore. We didn't even do shows last week because we're like, we're going to do a third show, and we're like, if the trade drops, it gets ridiculous. Like I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. Like obviously we still have to talk about it, but the pins and needles and waiting every second to hear what's going to happen. It's just I'm beyond frustrated with it.
Can we commit to next show, which we will record next week? We haven't determined what day yet, but we will record next week. Full show, no Brandon Aiyuk talk, unless he's signed or traded.
I will try. I don't know if I can promise that. I'm pretty fired up about the whole thing right now. So I was breaking your balls 3 shows ago. You always want to talk about Aiyuk, and I'm like, I'm sick of it. And now I just can't because I'm beside myself with the whole thing. So we'll see. Who knows with this team what the hell is going to happen in 3 days? So we can be talking about anything. Which is, the Niners are a content machine.
We don't even know if we're going to be here tomorrow, right? According to 100%.
Kyle. Thank you, Kyle Shanahan. All right. Thanks, Kyle Shanahan. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Brian, I'm Al.
Later.
Niners on 3. 1, 2, 3.
.2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.